If you keep looking, you might see a better way. If you keep looking, you see the sunshine today.
Sunshine
You
today.
can be happy.
Be happy.
You can be sad.
Be sad.
You can see the sunshine.
Sunshine.
You can be mad.
Be mad.
Be mad.
Be mad.
You could be mad. You could be glad. You can see the sunshine. You can be sad. You could be happy.
You can be happy.
Things ain't that bad.
Things ain't that bad.
Look up at the sunshine.
Look up at the
Don't
sunshine.
be sad.
Don't be sad.
You can be happy.
Don't be
You
sad.
can be glad.
Think about tomorrow.
You can see the sunshine. But you can be
Think
sad.
about the good time.
Why be unhappy?
Don't be sad.
That's what I say.
You could be. You'll be glad. Just be happy. Just be happy. Just be happy.
You can be happy.
You could be happy.
You can be glad.
You could be glad.
You can see the sunshine.
You can see the
You
sunshine.
can be sad.
Don't be
Why
sad.
be unhappy?
Don't be unhappy.
That's what I say.
Happy about the day. Such a beautiful day. I just want to feel happy today. I just
be
want
happy.
to feel happy
You can be
today.
glad.
I
You can see
just
the
want to
sunshine.
feel happy
But you can be
today.
sad. Why be unhappy? That's what I say. You can be happy.
You can be happy.
You can be glad.
You can be glad.
You can see the sunshine.
You can see the
You can
sunshine.
be sad.
You can be sad.
You can see the morning.
You can see the
You
morning.
can see the night.
You can see the night.
You can see everything gonna be alright. Alright.
Everything's gonna be alright. Be happy. Be happy. Good evening. Welcome to Drizzle's Tank. And what do you know? You're not alone. I'm right here again to give you some more information. Hopefully, will be beneficial to you and anybody else who could come across this. This week, we'll start out as usual. I just want to fill everybody in kind of on how things kind of go. Epilepsy is a terrible silent disease. Many of us have it. You are not alone. Tell me your story. Tell us all. Enjoy some conversation, some tunes, some optimism. I'm not a doctor, a nurse, a psychologist, a therapist. I probably can't take your blood pressure properly. Why? Because I'm not trained to. In order to come speak, you must have someone there with you in case of an emergency or have a brief chat before the show to confirm certain specifics. If you would like to chat, but Sunday is just not a good day, let me know. We can potentially do an interview on a different day during the week if you feel like it's something that might be beneficial, for sure. My email is available in my description. If there is an emergency, there is a delay, I will stop the feed and you will more than likely call an ambulance if necessary. We just don't want to traumatize anybody. It's already hard enough being epileptic, so we want to make sure that if something happens, we can, we'll try to take care of things as best we can. If you try anything crazy, we'll end the feed before anyone's the wiser, so don't waste your time or life. This week, I'd like to start by filling you in kind of on, something that's been a huge part of my journey in epilepsy. Whether or not it was something I learned from my doctors originally or not, this was just stuff I found just by listening to my body, I guess, listening to how I felt. And I had to know that I didn't feel right. Laura, can you take care of that cat or something? I don't know. Put it somewhere. I changed my diet, and that was the biggest thing that has helped me along the way through my journey. So this week, because I have talked about diet previously, I'd like to speak more specifically about artificial ingredients, sweeteners, additives, and the effects they have on seizures and our overall health. Because I mean, it's not just epileptics that are bothered by this stuff. This is very. Is every animal on the prowl? Come, buddy, please. Oh my goodness. We all are affected by the products that we use, the medicines that we take, the products that we use in our hair and our toothpaste and our soaps. All of it is effective to our overall health. Tonight I wanted to show a couple of videos to get things started, just to kind of give an idea of who's in control of this stuff. So we'll start out. Got that first video there.
Hello, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm John.
And we are historians here. We're excited to welcome you to the FDA's new exhibit, Our Story, the Food and Drug Administration, located at the White Oak campus in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Our agency has a long and wide-reaching history of protecting and promoting public health. We hope this exhibit helps to educate visitors to the FDA about the many ways we impact their lives and how we have worked to keep them safe throughout the agency's history.
We also look forward to visits from FDA employees to learn more about how we are connected through our shared history.
This exhibit has 3 themes: science and technology, law and enforcement, and education and outreach.
We carefully selected a few artifacts, images, and films to convey significant aspects of FDA's past and showcase each theme. This is the first time many of these items have been displayed.
The exhibit includes multimedia elements that capture the FDA's important role in communicating to the public, such as public service announcements.
You can also find an interactive touchscreen display which features people key to FDA's story, video vignettes about FDA artifacts, and even test how well you know the FDA with a quick quiz.
Anytime you're on the FDA campus, we welcome you to visit the exhibit to explore our agency's rich and impactful history.
And stop by again in the future to see new displays.
So that beauty right there is a warm up to what kind of what the FDA stands for, letting things slide and then trying to cover up and fix it up later. So they've had quite a history of really fun stuff, really fun stuff that they've had to step in and stop things along the way. There was a lot more fakes back in the day, products that were absolutely not real, but yet still made it through. The next video I'm going to have pulled up is, it's called Chamber of Horrors, and it is nothing but. Now, it's nothing that anybody's gonna say, oh no, I can't see this, and so don't be afraid. It's nothing that's going to do anything other than possibly shock you. So go ahead, give that one a go ahead, and I see that wonder.
Buying quality foods and drugs was a challenge at the turn of the 20th century. Flour might be contaminated with insect parts, while sugar might be laced with sand or saccharin. Many foods were of poor quality and few were accurately labeled. Likewise, many drugs were not potent, effective, or safe, and patent medicines contained mostly alcohol, often with an opium derivative added. Consumers were none the wiser because neither food nor medicine labels were required to list their ingredients. After 27 years of debate, Congress enacted the 1906 Pure Food and Drugs Act, the first federal law to protect consumers from fraudulent, adulterated, and mislabeled foods and drugs. It required labeling to be truthful on foods and drugs and set some initial standards for drugs. However, the law was unable to stop false advertising or protect consumers from the dangers posed by other products, such as unsafe cosmetics or fraudulent devices. New technologies brought new products and ingredients to contend with, as well as alluring new marketing methods, such as radio advertising.
New beauty, new youth, new vim.
By the 1930s, many of the law's shortcomings had become obvious. FDA decided it was time to educate the public about the limitations of the law. Ruth Lamb, FDA's chief education officer, and George Larrick, FDA's chief inspector, were instrumental in creating a traveling exhibit of dangerous and deceptive products that the agency was unable to remove from the market. In the summer and fall of 1933, the exhibit, dubbed the American Chamber of Horrors by the press, made its way across the country, including the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago, drawing the public's attention to the need for a new food and drug law. Under the 1906 Act, it was virtually impossible for FDA to prosecute unsafe or fraudulent drugs. The agency was not authorized to remove inherently unsafe drugs from the market, and in order to prove that a drug was fraudulent, it had to demonstrate that the manufacturer knowingly misled consumers. Since the law did not cover promotional materials, manufacturers could simply move their false claims to their advertising to avoid labeling requirements. And there was no provision allowing FDA to act against inherently dangerous drugs. One example was Banbar. This was a worthless product consisting of a variety of chemicals and plants that was marketed as a cure for diabetes, at a time when insulin injections were widely available and effective. In court, the product's proprietor presented testimonials from consumers claiming they had benefited from Banbar. FDA countered with death certificates from the same people who had died from diabetes. But FDA could not demonstrate that Banbar's maker knew he was defrauding patients, and so the product continued to be sold. Marmola was a popular cure for obesity, and like many similar products, it relied on dried thyroid hormone. It was heavily advertised, especially on the radio.
Starvation diets are no longer necessary. You'll hear how Marmola, based on modern science, using the factors employed by modern doctors.
Unfortunately, no one ever heard that Marmola could trigger classic symptoms of hyperthyroidism, rapid heart rate, and insomnia. Since obesity was not considered a disease or a medical condition at the time, Marmola remained on the market. Radithor claimed to treat impotence and dozens of other serious diseases. It made headlines when Congress began an investigation following the slow and painful death of Eben Byers, a prominent businessman and athlete. Buyers consumed hundreds of bottles of Radithor for years and suffered the effects of radium poisoning, including bone disintegration. Since Radithor was accurately labeled as a radioactive water, it was legal under the 1906 Act. The Great Depression left half of the U.S. population either unemployed or underemployed, so that food became a national preoccupation. And for the FDA, the need to maintain the integrity of the food supply had never been more challenging. The pressure for low-cost foods was so great that many manufacturers were forced to sacrifice both quality and nutrition to sell food as inexpensively as possible, and some unscrupulous vendors resorted to trickery. Consumers were the unwitting victims of deceptively packaged foods that concealed substandard and underweight products. But honest food manufacturers who couldn't compete with rock-bottom prices also suffered, many of them going out of business. An already dire crisis over food quality became even more so. Strawberry bread spread was not really jam, but the consumer did not know this because it looked like jam, and the label illustration made it look like any other fruit preserve on the shelf. It lacked any nutritional value, however, since it had no fruit or fruit juice. Its sole ingredients were pectin, artificial coloring, and flavoring, plus some grass seeds to mimic strawberry seeds. Chicken in a jar was a nutritious product, but consumers were deceived when the only white meat in the jar was a thin veneer surrounding dark meat, which was covered by the product label. Pure flavor extracts like vanilla and lemon were expensive. Consumers recognized this bottle as one holding 2 ounces of extract, but these bottles had thickened glass sides and held only 1 ounce. The pretty product label covered the deception. After the First World War, the popularity of glamour magazines and Hollywood movies spurred enormous growth in the cosmetics industry. But FDA had no authority over these products because they weren't part of the 1906 law. Manufacturers could use dangerous ingredients and make outlandish claims without fear of reprisal. Many cosmetics products included toxic chemicals like mercury, lead, and silver, but there were no labeling requirements, so consumers were unaware of the dangers. Consider Coremlu, sold as a cream to remove unwanted hair from the face and body. Its chief ingredient, thallium acetate, could cause baldness, muscle and nerve damage, and even permanent paralysis. OPTiMISM was a skin-lightening cream and freckle remover that contained mercury. While it was highly effective in bleaching skin, mercury was well known to be dangerous, potentially leading to kidney damage, mouth ulceration, and tooth loss. Some fatalities were also linked to the high doses of the metal. Lash Lure was a dangerous aniline or coal tar-based dye used as an eyebrow and eyelash tint in beauty salons. The Journal of the American Medical Association reported more than a dozen cases of severe harm linked to the product: eyelash and eyebrow loss, scarring, vision impairment, and in at least one case, irreversible blindness and disfigurement. In the 1920s and 30s, gadgeteers using new materials and manufacturing methods, along with extravagant advertising, forged a market for devices of dubious therapeutic value. Unfortunately, the 1906 Act was completely silent on medical devices. The pandiculator and the natural body brace were quack devices promising to correct poor posture and enhance overall health. Instead, they could cause orthopedic and respiratory problems. The perfect breather claimed to cure snoring, alleviate head colds, and beautify, at the risk of suffocating in your sleep. And the wHaT exhaler falsely promised to cure tuberculosis and other pulmonary diseases. These scandalous products and many, many others made it clear that the 1906 Pure Food and Drugs Act was not effectively protecting the public health. The nation needed a stronger federal law, yet it would take another 5 years of debate, dispute, and compromise to usher a new bill through Congress. In the end, outrage over a public health tragedy in which more than 100 people died after taking a toxic sulfa drug finally convinced Congress to pass the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, strengthening FDA's powers of consumer protection and safeguarding the public health. From that point on, FDA would have authority to regulate the safety and labeling of not only food and drugs, but medical devices and cosmetics, as well as the powers to establish food standards and certify artificial colors. The act also prohibited deceptive packaging of foods and false therapeutic claims for drugs, and required that drugs be proven safe before they could be sold to consumers, and that they be labeled with accurate directions for safe use. Though it would be amended well over 100 times in the 8 decades after its passage, the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act has served as the bedrock of FDA's legal authority ever since. The 1938 Act is still the law of the land, and the American Chamber of Horrors helps us remember why.
Well, wasn't that fun? All those wonderful, wonderful treats they've presented to us over the years. It's so nice of them that they stepped up to the plate to make sure that we weren't getting suckered by sand in our sugar. I feel like I'm still eating sand in my sugar is the problem. I have to be so meticulous about the foods that I ingest, because though there's not a lot of studies stating that there are foods and such that particularly cause seizures, they have things, different studies that have different viewpoints. They're all over the place. They all contradict each other. They all want to say something opposite. Always depends on, follow the money. Who's paying for the study? What's the result they're looking for? Are they trying to see, is this going to be a good thing? Can we prove that this is good? Or are they out to try and say, hey, we don't think there's something good about this. Let's make sure we're not hurting people. Because those studies seem to be the ones that are the hardest to get to happen. It's very easy for the people with a lot of money to pay for whatever study they want, to save whatever information that they want, to be able to provide the products that they want. And being an epileptic who has tried so many medications and so many, just everything. I've tried everything. You've watched previously, I've spent a year determining whether I needed the regional or responsive nerve stimulator. They determined no. Now they want me to go down to Orlando to determine if I need a vagus nerve stimulator. Sounds like that's going to be a no. And I'm refractal. I can take as many meds as I want, other than, like Klonopin and stuff of that nature. None of it really does anything for me. Recently, I took up using CBD, and I'm making sure I only use it when I seem to really need it. And so far, I've only needed it a few times, but I also haven't had a seizure in about a month now. And that's been amazing. I've been very, very, very hawkish about how I've been eating for the most part. I have had a few things where I'm like, I know better. I know better. But I'm human, so occasionally I'm gonna make mistakes. The biggest thing that matters in all of this, of the intake, is the abstinence from alcohol entirely. I don't know for anybody else, but the complete abstinence of alcohol was my biggest beneficial health related thing to epilepsy. When I stopped drinking, that changed so many things, because I stopped damaging other parts of my body. So then when other parts were trying to fix themselves, they weren't busy trying to compete with other parts, I feel like. And I can't verify most of this. All I know is that I was hurting my liver, I was hurting my kidneys, I was hurting my brain, I was hurting my organs, and most of all, I was hurting relationships and my ability to be a good human being and my ability to make good choices. And you know, some people are able to have a couple drinks and act like a human being, and I wasn't one of those people. So thank goodness, it's been many years since I've had a drink at this point, and it's helped out immensely. But the second biggest thing was my diet. About 5 years ago, I was taking so much Lamortigen that it was scary. They had me taking 600 milligrams twice a day, still having breakthrough seizures. So they bumped me up. They wanted me to take 800 milligrams 3 times a day, which is hospital dose. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. It's not going to happen. It's not because I don't think medicine can work for some people or that there isn't benefits, but because it wasn't working for me. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. Everybody's going to handle this stuff differently. Everybody's going to get through this differently. And what I found was medicine wasn't for me. I weaned myself off of Lamortigen over 2.5 weeks. And I began a ketogenic diet, which I didn't hold to. I now do a modified Atkins diet because I do intake around 80 to 100 grams of carbohydrates on average a day. Some days, less. Occasionally I have more. Some days I'll have myself a big meal and I'll have a few extra carbohydrates, but I also work out regularly and I try to take care of myself in other ways. So when I do have a couple extra carbohydrates, I actually do enough physical activity to counteract the additional carbohydrates. The key thing is if I'm not doing the proper amount of physical activity or doing the things that I need to keep the proper nutrients in my body, and I'm just overloading myself with food, I quickly gain weight. I quickly do all this. Unhealthiness, I get pimples, I get weird stuff. But then I started looking deeper and I said, well, is that is it just the carbohydrates? Is it just the sugars? Or is it something else? And so I started digging deeper. And what I noticed is my entire life, I had been abstaining from sugars entirely. When I was a kid, my mother wouldn't let me have food coloring or sugar or like a candy or anything like that because it made me very hyper. And so I would get a lot of sugar-free is what it was usually called, sugarless, things that had alternative sugars, things that had alternative ingredients to get the same result. And in our eyes, me not acting like a lunatic from eating sugars and sugar alcohols seemed to help me immensely because I was ADHD. I got a lot of energy. Even as an adult, I still have more energy than most normal people. But I find ways to use it. And so I want to show one more thing before I kind of get going a little more. Let me pull this up here. This is a page that I come to frequently. As I'm going through a lot of different information, you find yourself back to the links to this page, and I feel like this is going to be best served as a complete. So allow me to just put this up here. I'm gonna start this up, mute myself, and you guys go ahead and follow along because it is worth every moment. Let me get going.
Nutrition. A balanced diet.
Drew, I can't hear it anymore.
You say you couldn't hear it?
Yeah, couldn't hear it. I heard it, like it said it the first like couple words, and then that was it. It didn't.
Oh, no kidding. Here, let me send you the link. Maybe if I just put, do you have the auto reader like that?
I don't know.
All right, let me maybe I have
diet
to,
nutrition, and then after that it stopped auto reading. So maybe start it after the headline. It was showing the words and it was showing that it was going through, but I didn't.
huh. That's weird.
Yeah, at first it was there. Could anyone else hear it when it was going through after the first couple of words?
Yeah, let's confirm here.
Can you just sum it up? Like, just go through.
No,
I can always just read it. It's just she's faster at it. Because it's not very long.
the AI.
No sound. All right. Well, then I'll just read it out real quick. It's not that long. It's excellent information. Let me pull my goofy face back up here then. So, diet and nutrition. A balanced diet from different food groups helps the body and brain to function, helping us to stay healthy. This may help reduce the risk of seizures for some people with epilepsy. Making your own meals gives you control over what you eat, and some of the things you can help make cooking safer if you have seizures. There are no specific foods that generally trigger seizures, as epilepsy is very individual, which I can't stress enough. Now that's something the Autobot wouldn't have said anyway, but keep that in mind. Everybody's different. Just because something affects me doesn't mean it's going to affect you, and just because it affects you doesn't mean it's going to affect me. But it's best to at least know what could potentially affect any of us. So, how does diet affect epilepsy? Although there is little evidence that the balanced diet has a direct effect on seizures, it provides essential nutrients and keeps our energy levels steady. A balanced diet may also help you keep a regular sleep pattern and keep active, both of which are good for overall health. Getting enough sleep may help to reduce the risk of seizures for some people. A diet that suits you may help you to feel positive, more able to focus, and more in control of your life and decisions about managing your epilepsy. What is a balanced diet? A balanced diet is generally made up of carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vegetables, and fruit, and drinking plenty of fluids. Water, water, water. Research continues into what makes a healthy diet, and dietary guidelines are also influenced by where we live, our health needs, and our lifestyles. Carbohydrates, we know what carbohydrates are. Foods like potatoes and bread and all that. And then there's whole grains. We got fats, oils, oily fish, nuts, help us absorb nutrients, including important vitamins, to keep us warm, to help our cells stay healthy and give us energy. Proteins build and support our muscles, hormones, enzymes, red blood cells, and immune system. Protein is in dairy foods such as milk and cheese, also in meat, fish, tofu, beans, lentils, eggs. Vegetables and fruit of various colors provide vitamins and minerals. They also help protect us from infection, damage to our cells, and diseases. Currently, it is recommended that we aim to eat at least 5 portions of vegetables or fruit per day. 1 portion is roughly a handful. If you got little hands, maybe use somebody else's hand too, Cooked food is usually healthier when steamed, baked, grilled, poached, or boiled rather than fried. Drinking water helps us to function and concentrate and reduces the risk of seizures triggered by dehydration. Foods for steady energy levels. Eating foods which release energy levels slowly and steadily help you feel full for longer and often provide more fiber than foods which release your energy quickly. Steady energy release foods include whole grains, granary, seeded breads, basmati, long grain and brown rice, pasta, noodles, oat, and oat-based cereals, peas, beans, pulses, yogurts, nuts, sweet potatoes, yams, new potatoes with the skins on, because without the skin, it's basically useless. Better off eating the dirt. Non-starchy vegetables such as greens, broccoli, onions, and tomatoes, apples, pears, and most berries. Foods which may cause energy peaks and slumps include white bread, non-whole grain cereals, biscuits, cakes, honey, high sugar drinks, and foods. We know the sugary stuff. Steady energy levels can help you feel more active, and positive effects of exercise may also help to reduce seizures in some people with epilepsy. So stay active. Different types of fats. The NHS recommends that adults should eat at least 2 portions of fish a week. This should include 1 portion of oily fish, but no more than 4. There is a different advice for women, children, and babies. For more information on oily fish, visit the nhs.uk. And that's a good one to follow because, there are times like pregnant women aren't supposed to take in specific oils, and then should take in things like the folic acids and stuff like that. So fats to avoid, where possible, trans fats, hydrogenated fats, and chemically processed oils, biscuits, cakes, margarines, deep fried foods. These fats are difficult for the body to break down, have been linked to increased cholesterol levels, which is a risk for strokes and heart disease. Knowing what we eat. Research into what foods are good or bad for us is ongoing. Media reports and recommendations about what to eat can be confusing or contradictory. It can also be hard to know what our food contains. Traffic light labeling on supermarket food is one way to help you see what is in foods. This uses red, amber, and green labels for high to low levels of our recommended daily amount of calories, sugars, fats, and salts. Seeing at a glance the foods with more green labels than red can help you make your own choices about keeping a balanced diet. Now, they don't follow that everywhere. Preparing food. Making your own meals gives you more control over what you're eating. If you have seizures, some things may help make cooking safer. Using the kettle tippers and wire baskets instead of inside of your pans, so you don't have to lift a whole pot of water, or using hobs, making sure you always turn the pan handles inside and away from on burners. Using a microwave. It stinks to have to think to use a microwave, but it's a lot safer in a lot of situations. Some people just got to do that, and but just remember, what you're taking in doesn't mean you have to eat a microwave meal just because all you can cook with is the microwave. There are plenty of options. Vitamins and mineral supplements. For most people, varied health and diet will provide all the vitamins and minerals they need. Taking unnecessarily supplements can be harmful. For example, women who are pregnant or planning a pregnancy need to avoid taking too much vitamin A, found in liver and fish oil supplements like cod liver oil. However, if you need supplements, your doctor can advise you. For example, all pregnant women who are planning to get pregnant are advised to take a daily supplement of folic acid. Oh, like that. So like that. Vitamin D helps the body to absorb calcium and build healthy bones. Sunlight is the main source of vitamin D, and most people store enough to last the days when there is little sunlight. So make sure you're getting out in the summertime, getting plenty of sunlight, so that when you are sitting around in the wintertime, you're not breaking down your foods properly and taking in vitamins and all the stuff that you need. So go get that vitamin D. It's also in eggs, oily fish, liver. A lot of foods have it added in. Department of Health recommends pregnant and breastfeeding women take a daily supplement of vitamin D. Some anti-epileptic drugs can reduce bone density, making bones weaker and more likely to break. To help prevent this, doctors suggest a bone density scan and prescribe vitamin D supplements. Can special diets help prevent seizures? Dietary treatments can help with some people by using levels of fats, carbohydrates, and protein that affect how the brain works. Went over this a couple of weeks ago. I would suggest taking a look back and seeing about some of these diets. Ketogenic, the Atkins diet. They are very beneficial, or they wouldn't prescribe them from neurological centers. Can any foods trigger seizures? They don't have any yet. Nothing currently that any type of food consistently triggers seizures in people with epilepsy, except for rare types like reflex epilepsy, where seizures are triggered by eating very specific foods. It happened in response to certain trigger epilepsy, photosensitivity, reading, startles. Some people, you can just walk up behind them and startle them, and that's all it takes. So although there are some common triggers for seizures, such as like sleep, stress, and alcohol, everyone's epilepsy is different. Some people feel that colorings like food colorings, preservatives, MSG, artificial sweeteners can trigger their seizures. Many food labeled low fat contain these artificial ingredients. Some people with epilepsy avoid certain foods if they seem to trigger seizures. Grapefruit juice and pomegranate juice do not trigger seizures, but they can make the side effects of some epilepsy medications more likely, including carbamazepine, diazepam, and midazolam. The patient information leaflet of your medication will tell you this. So always make sure you're taking the time to open up those leaflets that come from the pharmacy when you pick up your meds, because there is very good information in there, and it's best you know it, because you're putting that in your body every day. Caffeine found in coffee, tea, cola, some energy drinks has stimulating effect on central nervous system. Relationship between caffeine and seizure control and anti-epileptic drugs is complex and not fully understood. However, some reports suggest that caffeine may increase the likelihood of seizures happening for some people, but also can help how their anti-epileptic drugs work in some situations. So best to talk to your doctor about that one. We covered caffeine and seizures previously. It's some good information there. So realistically, even the people at the Epilepsy Foundation, while they can't step up and say, hey, this stuff is definitely the problem, they make it a point to say, take the time to recognize what's in your diet, recognize what you're taking in, to keep a diary of the foods that you eat and how much of everything that you take. It might sound like a task at first, but realistically, if you take the time to keep a diary of what you're ingesting and when and of how much, when your doctor asks those questions, that's very beneficial to them, because it's hard for them to make a good decision about these things if they don't know what you're putting in your body. And the problem is the foods and drugs and shampoos and everything else are so full of these insane additives that most of them don't even belong there. As many of them are synthetic and just, once again, you follow the money, and you find out for many years a lot of these products get to stay with safety go-aheads because the right people are paying for the right research. And so I'm going to start out by talking mostly about sugar substitutes on this subject. The health controversy over perceived benefits. There is an article from PubMed, goes under that name, and I'm just going to cover a few things that are most important in the matter. Sugar substitutes, artificial sweeteners are food additives that duplicate the effects of sugar and taste, but usually has less food energy. Besides its benefits, animal studies have convincingly proven that artificial sweeteners cause weight gain, brain tumors, bladder cancer, and other health hazards. There's some caveats with that. Some kind of health-related effects, including carcinogenicity, are also noted in humans. A large number of the studies have been carried out on these substances, with conclusions ranging from safe under all conditions and unsafe at any dose. Well, that's helpful. Scientists are divided in their views on the issue of artificial sweetener safety. In scientific as well as lay publications, supporting studies are often widely referenced, while the opposing results are de-emphasized and dismissed. So they take the information that is helpful to them and they compile it, and then they send it over, and then they get to keep their poison on the market. Fun. Animal studies have convincingly proven that artificial sweeteners cause body weight gain. Sweet taste includes any sweet taste induces an insulin response, which causes blood sugar to be stored in tissues. But because the blood sugar does not increase with artificial sweeteners, there is hypoglycemia and just makes you hungrier. So all this trying to not eat unhealthy stuff just makes you want to eat more, essentially. The 3 breakdown products of aspartame are all toxic in high doses. Phenylalanine is an essential amino acid, which must be included in the diet for normal growth and maintenance. But sustained at high blood levels can lead to brain damage. Great. I don't know what high levels in the blood means because everybody says it's different. This is a major concern to 1 out of roughly 20,000 children who are born with the inherited condition phenylketonuria. I don't know if I pronounced that right. These children cannot metabolize phenylalanines, which then builds up to dangerous levels in their brains. The conditions, therefore, necessitates a severe curtailment of their phenylalanine intake for at least the first 6 years of life. This means that aspartame, due to its phenylalanine content, is not suitable for PKU sufferers and consequently requires a warning to that effect on products in which it is an ingredient. So you see it on your diet sodas, you see it on your foods for weight loss and all this stuff. Stuff is in it. It was suggested that some of the untoward effects of aspartame may be caused by sudden increases in brain phenylalanine levels, especially when the sweetener is consumed along with foods in high carbohydrates. Carbohydrates trigger insulin release into the bloodstream, which in turn makes it easier for phenylalanine to cross the blood-brain barrier. Carbohydrates-rich diets with introduction of non-nutritive sweeteners and the like tend to also be used in conjunction with other known carcinogens and stimulants. So they know that these things are poisonous when they cross the blood-brain barrier in too high of levels, especially when eaten in carbohydrate-rich foods, because they trigger an insulin response. So even though they know that that's a bad combination, it's still the common combination. One of the ones that I came across that I was unfamiliar with because it's not in the US. It's been passed in like the UK and China and a couple other places. It's called tagatose. Is a new synthetic additive and is chemically related to fructose, but is poorly absorbed by the body. That's why it yields only about 1/3 as many calories. So your body doesn't take it in, so you get less calories from it. But large amounts cause diarrhea, nausea, and flatulence. Although it is chemically a sugar, it does not promote tooth decay. So you'll be kind of farty, but at least you'll be able to brush your teeth. Isn't that fun? A good way to start the day. I'll have clean teeth, but I'll stink out all my coworkers at work. Sounds good. Extensive scientific research has demonstrated the safety of 6 low-calorie sweeteners currently approved for use in foods in the U.S. and Europe: stevia, aspartame K, aspartame, neotame, saccharin, and sucralose, each with an acceptable daily intake. So there's an acceptable daily amount that you should intake. A number of studies have been carried out to confirm the safety of artificial sweeteners. A number of studies have also shown the adverse effects of the same. But most of the studies have limitations, such as effects shown only in the animals, not in humans, small sample sizes, high doses, statistically non-significant or borderline significant, etc. The sugar substitutes are thoroughly investigated for safety with hundreds of scientific studies and then approved by different regulatory authorities like the US FDA, the JECFA, which is the World Health Organization, basically, and FSANZ, which I can't never remember which one that one is. Some agents are approved with the warning labels too, so further exploration is required with well-designed large-scale studies in the general population. Based on the anecdotal evidence, it has been concluded that based on analysis of the database of case histories, there are a number of symptoms that are recurrently reported by individuals who believe that they are caused by sugar substitute ingestion. The information gathered in this analysis can be useful in guiding the design and format of any investigative study that may be undertaken to determine individual sensitivity to sugar substitutes. So if you are interested in learning more about the subject, this is just a link that's on PubMed. It's a public link. We'll try and put it somewhere so everybody can see it. And just start your research there, because I mean that particular research study abstract and everything just had excellent information just from the start, and from the abstract and the conclusion alone carried so much good information. Aspartame and cancer, new evidence for causation. That's the name of the article. It's also on PubMed. Yeah, we're here to talk about epilepsy, but the problem is a lot of these things become comorbidities. With one, you have the other. A lot of diabetics who have diabetic neuropathy have a lot of problems with seizures. They have nerve damage. They have issues that really can cause real long-term problems. And those long-term problems create malignancies in your body that turn into cancers. The seizures might just be a warning that you're not taking care of your body right. That you're putting bad things in your body that, any reaction that your body has that doesn't seem normal, you got to listen to that. You got to listen. You got to understand your own body. You got to know. Because realistically, there's so much potential for damage to your body just from the common stuff that we put in our bodies every single day. The studies they tried to re-examine would not provide findings and tried to argue the finding from the adverse study was only found because the rats used were sick and malignant prior, which they undeniably showed otherwise besides a small percentage. So in this particular study, they were working with rats, and they found that the aspartame was causing cancers. And the people who originally paid for all that information to make sure that aspartame got on the market were not happy about it. And so they would not let them see their previous findings. They argued everything that they said and came up with reasons for why their study was not worthy, which they went back. They're like, no, you can't basically slander them, tell them they were using inferior study materials and all that. Like that's insane. They were trying to call out another professional organization, basically, is what they were doing. And so while there were no conflicts of interest between this study, any of the partners in this study, because they all worked at the same places, basically, the people that originally came up with the information were not happy that these people found this. And so the interpretation is that these new findings confirm that aspartame is a chemical carcinogen in rodents. They confirm the very worrisome finding that prenatal exposure to aspartame increases cancer risk in rodent offspring. They validate the conclusions of the original research studies. These findings are of great importance for public health, and in light of them, we encourage all national and international public health agencies to urgently re-examine their assessments of aspartame's health risks, especially the risks of prenatal and early postnatal exposures. We call upon food agencies to reassess accessible daily intake levels for aspartame. We note that the advisory group to the International Agency for Research on Cancer has recommended high priority reevaluation of aspartame's carcinogenicity to humans. We know that carcinogens cause cancers. We know that these poisons cause reactions in certain people. Me being one of them. It may not be lab proven, but my change in diet and removal of anything that's artificial, mechanically processed, preservative, besides like vitamin E and other natural preservatives, which exist, vinegar, salt, they're natural. They exist. There are natural ways. I eat a lot of jerky just because it helps with myself when I'm feeling dehydrated. I eat some jerky, helps me feel full, helps me hold my water a little bit better, retain my water. But I could also just eat a candy bar or drink a soda. I have choices. It's up to me to make the right choice for me. I don't necessarily have the right choice for everybody, but I know the right one for me was to start out by removing alcohol because of all the weird stuff that's in that. You see somebody with a bright red face who drinks all the time, that's the formaldehyde. That's the poison. They're dying. They're dying. It's killing them. I've watched friends die. It's happened. I see it. You have to know what you're putting in your body. So after I got rid of booze, I got rid of that stuff. Artificial sweeteners, gone. Gone. That was the start. So we're going to take a little break for a minute here, do a little midway music. This week, instead of playing one of my songs, I've asked Mr. Steve Cutler to come play live. Why? Because he's awesome at it, and it's very pleasurable to do so. And so I'm going to let him come and entertain you guys for a few minutes while I go get a drink of water and reestablish that all the pets are where they're supposed to be.
All right. I'm going to move out of the way and let Steve get in.
Get him in the hot seat.
The cat is trying to eat he's like, you're eating salmon?
That's it. Those stray cats, man, I tell you what, they smell us eating something even in another room, and all of a sudden they're just sitting there at your leg like, hey, what you got there? Yeah, the one cat, Frankie, that's all he does is eat. He was the runt. And so they didn't let him eat. They would not let him eat when he first moved in. Now he's the fat one. So all right. Well, go right ahead whenever you're ready, Mr. Steve. Thank you so much, my man.
Let me
Cat is so happy. He's like, I love that you're eating salmon.
Yes, the cat is definitely pleased with us and our food choices to share with him. All right. Do-do-do-do.
Is this still me over here?
Yeah, I didn't sign in over there. Did not do that. All right. Should I? All right, I'm just going to leave it like this so everybody thinks it's Lucky Burrito playing.
No.
Why?
Take the thing off.
Why?
Just hit the stop cam on the bottom and take Drew down and put you up.
Okay. All right. There I am. There am I. There I am is. All righty. Gonna play a song for you now. The one I think that Drew said I should play, so I'm gonna do that. I don't know if it's the one, but I'm hoping I'm correct. Cold, cold ashes on the ground. Nothing lost and nothing found. Friends and loved ones falling down. Can't you hear that mournful sound? Nothing left but memories. Things I still can't stand to see. There's an empty spot in me where my hometown used to be. This old boat is taking water. Won't be long till it goes down. Had enough to push us over. Time to turn the wheel around. Neighborhoods left to decay. People died or walked away. Nothing left for them to stay. We just look the other way. This old boat is taking water. Won't be long till it goes down. Had enough to push us over. It's time to turn the wheel around. This old boat is taking water. Won't be long till it goes down. Had enough to push us over. It's time to turn the wheel around. Waves keep pounding through the night. Lost without a ray of light. Going down without a fight. Is there still time to make it right? Well, this old boat is taking water. Won't be long till it goes down. Had enough to push us over. Time to turn the wheel around. This old boat is taking water. Won't be long till it goes down. Had enough to push us over. It's time to turn the wheel around. It's time to turn the wheel around. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for seeing and watching the show. I'm going to put Drew back up on here.
Man, I'm so glad I asked you to do that. You do that song so well. I love that one.
Well, thank
I
you.
really do like that one.
I'm going to turn it back over to Lucky here. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Well, awesome. Well, that was very, very pleasurable. I'm glad that he was able to take the time to do that. Sometimes Stever's on chore duty during the show, so I was glad he had time this week. But guess what? It's me again. I'm back. Can you believe it?
Do not let Steve fool you.
So to get this second half started here, we're gonna go over neurological effects in relation to epilepsy from additives and metals, and also what allow these metals and carcinogens to pass our blood-brain barrier, the BBB, and affect the blood control barrier, our BCB. I just want to make sure, because I'm going to say BBB and BCB every time, because that's a lot of words to say, and it'll be a lot easier that way. So, surprisingly, this one also came as a good site, good source, right from PubMed. I mean, every one of these articles and research studies, they come with 30 to 100 resources and resource sightings and everything. So these are just excellent just overall sum ups of very, very large studies. And if you really are confused by a lot of it, you can even just read the abstracts and the conclusions, and most of the time you can get most you need from those. This one here stood out to me. Our neurophysiological symptoms and aspartame. And what is the connection? That's the name of the article. It's on PubMed, nih.gov. Aspartame, an artificial sweetener, has been linked to behavioral and cognitive problems. Possible neurophysiological symptoms include learning disabilities, learning problems, headache, seizure, migraines, irritable moods, anxiety, depression, and insomnia. The consumption of aspartame, unlike dietary protein, can elevate the levels of phenylalanine and aspartic acid in the brain. These compounds can inhibit the synthesis and release the neurotransmitters dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, which are known regulators of neurophysiological activity. Aspartame acts as a chemical stressor by elevating plasma cortisol levels and causing the production of excess free radicals. High cortisol levels and excess free radicals may increase the brain's vulnerability to oxidative stress, which may have adverse effects on neurobehavioral health. We reviewed studies linking, they reviewed studies linking neurophysiological symptoms to aspartame using and conclude that aspartame may be responsible for adverse neurobehavioral outcomes. Aspartame consumption needs to be approached with caution due to the possible effects on neurobehavioral health. Whether aspartame and its metabolites are safe for general consumption is still debatable due to lack of consistent data. More research evaluating the neurobehavioral effects of aspartame are required. So, while I can't seem to find a study that comes right out and says, if you use these products, you're going to have problems. You're going to have seizures. I can't find anything that says that. I find a lot of things that say they can't conclude it based off of all the conflicting evidence. And then I can follow all the research, the stuff that conflicts. But like I said earlier, that they stated at the government website, the stuff is dismissed. A lot of the times the stuff is dismissed. Why? Because it's not beneficial to the people who are making the products. And they're spending a lot of money to make sure those products stay on the shelves. And so as they try to alleviate these situations, they find probably best to find alternatives. So they start looking for alternatives that are able to do the same thing. And that's how we come up with the saccharins and the stevias and the neonates and all these different weird synthetic, and some are non-synthetic. I mean, stevia is made from a natural plant. It's been used for thousands of years in teas and stuff like that as a sweetener. So I mean, they know that it has things, but even for some people, even that is linked to issues. So I mean, you have to understand that just because they say that it's safe doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe. It doesn't mean anything. And what they find is that even though the direct contact with the ingredients may not necessarily cause the seizure, but what they do is cause your body to react improperly, to ingest different nutrients incorrectly, take in certain nutrients more than they're supposed to, allow things to travel to other parts of their body, get stuck in tissues where they don't belong. And it's very important that if you're not paying attention to your diet, to recognize if this is something that might be happening to you, because you could possibly be having neurological issues from long-term use of these products. Because a lot of what they find is that the problems come from long-term use. You might not be injured from something today, but if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, over and over and over again, eventually you're going to see a difference. I really find the foods to create just absolutely, it creates all my pathways to how I feel, not just with my neurological health, but my overall attitude and mood. If I haven't eaten enough, I haven't drank enough water, I get grouchy. I know a lot of people call it hangry, and then it really depends on what you put in your body at that point. If I fill myself up with a bunch of carbohydrates and heavy starches and bread and rice, I'm going to bed. But a nice small portion of protein, good pile of vegetables, maybe some fresh fruit for a dessert. Get a bunch of nutrients, get a bunch of the stuff that I need. And my body says, oh, cool. We got a bunch of those nutrients and pretty close to the proper amounts that we need to make everything run properly. Cool. Or you can overlook what's in your foods. You can overlook what's in your medicines. You can overlook what's in your soap, which if you have not taken the time to look at your shampoo, even your high class, high quality, salon quality stuff, they have poisons all throughout them. They make natural soaps. I mean, they have soaps made. I know, like the Palestinian people have a rich culture in soap making, and they like make it on the floor. They like mix up olive oil, baking soda, and like salt and water. I don't even know if that's much salt. I think it's mostly just water. It's those three ingredients though, and they mix it up, and then they pour it onto the floor, and they cut it up. And it makes one of the most rich lathers you've ever felt. But yet everybody wants to go out and buy the stuff at the salon that has 9,000 ingredients in it that you can't pronounce half of them. You know why they do that? Because they don't want you to know what you're putting on your body. They don't want you to know what you're putting in your body. They don't want you to understand what's happening with your body. And the problem is a lot of us don't. We don't know what's going on with our bodies. That's why everybody's so unhealthy. That's why the average weight of the average American is going up incredibly. That's why diabetes is rampant in India. I mean, it's not just America. We're not the only fat ones. Like they try to make it sound like that here, but they have these issues all over the world because these products are everywhere. Now, a lot of cultures, in China, theirs is all prepackaged, throw away, and recycle. So they're eating all kinds of crazy, weird stuff. They also have all kinds of crazy, weird diseases we don't have here. That's why when they do these studies, a lot of this stuff is regional. Because what's in your food here may not be in your food in Europe, because the EU has much stricter standards on what's allowed in your food and what's allowed in your drugs and what's allowed in your shampoo. We don't. We're pretty wide open about it, and it's a shame. It's an absolute shame. Because, I showed you, we have an organization called the FDA, the Federal Food and Drug Administration. They're supposed to be the ones keeping us safe. I say if there's any negative evidence, then you tell them to get rid of it and we find something that's not. I mean, we understand that it's proven. The Paleolithic diets where you eat as simple as possible, simple meats and simple vegetables and simple fruits and no high complex carbohydrates, cut that stuff out and watch as you lose weight almost immediately. I mean, your body will start to metabolize properly because now it has all the proper amino acids to work with each other. That's why they tell you if you're going to eat rice, you better eat beans. If you're going to eat beans, you better eat rice. Why? Because they help each other digest. And you have to know which foods do that for each other. And if you're not eating a well-balanced diet, maybe you don't like certain foods. Well, get over it. You're probably adults if you're watching this. And you're probably saying, you know what? He's probably right. There's foods that I should be ingesting, but instead I'm eating Taco Bell. Guess what? I eat Taco Bell, I'll have a seizure the next day. Last 3 times I ate McDonald's, I had a seizure the next day. We kept trying it just to see, is it really that certain? Was for me. Every time. Why? Because it's not really food. It's byproducts. It's dehydrated meats, rehydrated meats. They literally take powder and they pour water on it, and then it turns into that weird meat that you see at Taco Bell. They have videos of it all over the internet. It's nothing new. You have to know what you put in your body. Because what else do these things do? Well, like I was telling you, you got to be aware of what's going through your blood-brain barrier. You got to know what's hitting your brain. And a lot of these foods are not good for your brain. They cause breaks in DNA. They cause tumors. They cause carcinogens. They cause neurophysiological disorders. It's proven. That last study I found that I was reading from, that was one of the most recent ones that I found of all studies. That was from 2021. Our brain barrier systems, a new frontier in metal neurotoxicological research. Also from PubMed, an article from NIH.gov. They make some very, very, very important points. Drug metabolism represents a major detoxification pathway, but in some cases can lead to the oxidative or reductive bioactivation of a compound. Drug metabolism activities have been associated with all 3 cell types, and examples of bioactivation at the blood-brain barrier have been reported. But they also know that this needs a lot more research. They know that metals deeply affect our brain. Not all metals. Not all metals are actually toxic. You get into like iron, your body has a way of only producing enough iron to your brain. The rest of it, it puts out as waste. It knows that it's waste. It knows that it doesn't need it because our bodies have learned to use it through adaptation. But what about the things that are in our foods and our medicines and our products, our body products, our clones, our perfumes, our deodorants? What kind of metals and stuff are in those? What kind of toxic, carcinogenic things are in those? There's a lot. And the blood-brain barrier interfaces protect the brain tissues against organic and inorganic chemicals by means of different complementary mechanisms. Nevertheless, toxic metals could bypass these mechanisms and inflict damage to the brain parenchyma. The effectiveness of the barrier systems may also be compromised either in pathological situations or following toxic insults by compounds that target the blood-brain interfaces. Cumulative evidence has revealed that the brain barriers, the gatekeepers of the cerebral compartment, are subject to toxic insults from heavy metal exposure. Because of the special roles of the brain barriers in overall brain development and function, it is reasonable to postulate that injury to the barriers may contribute to metal-induced neurotoxicities. Our knowledge about this aspect remains embryonic. It is therefore imperative that future investigations address how brain barriers sequester toxic metals, whether toxic metals alter barrier functions, and what neurological consequences may ensue. So, essentially, what we know is that these metals, these artificial ingredients, these colors, these preservatives, these different things, these synthetic food additives, they cause trouble. They're trouble. We know they are. There can be a million studies that deny it, but look who's paying for them. Follow the money. Follow the money. Always follow the money. If we know that metal is bad for us, go pick up a food, a diet food, like a weight loss food or something. First, look and see which artificial sweetener is in it, because it's going to have one, because they want you to get non-nutritive sweetness without the calories. So they, like we just found, they either have 0 calories at all and our bodies just do nothing with them, and they create rises in our insulin levels and cause hypoglycemia and all this good noise. They also open our blood-brain barrier. So then we got to look at the other ingredients. The metals. The colors. Because all food coloring is alcohol. So many foods have a derivative that's literally one compound different than the antifreeze you put in your car. They go under things called PEGs, PEG, polyethylene glycol. It's another form of glycol, another alcohol. And you look down further, and there's going to be a preservative in there, something that keeps that thing from going bad. Because, they know once aspartame breaks down, that's when it's the most poisonous, because it's kind of like an overripened fruit. Too much of an overripened fruit is not good. and it raises certain levels in your body that may make medicines not work properly. That's like the grape juice and the pomegranate juice. Then you look even further, and it's going to have things like aluminums in the flowers. It's going to have titanium dioxides, which is just a white coloring. It serves no other purpose. But it can cross your blood-brain barrier. And they're finding that these things are bad. Every day they find out more and more about how these things affect our bodies. So you eat that bar, that energy bar, weight loss energy bar, whatever it is, and you take in those artificial sweeteners, and it raises your insulin and your glycemic levels, and it creates a bigger blood flow. And now it takes all those other ingredients that you just put in your body and helps them pass through into places that they don't belong, into the tissues they shouldn't be in, into the places that they're the most damaging. That's scary. Because the people that eat this stuff are typically trying to lose weight. But what did they find? It typically makes people hungrier and causes them to gain weight. Happen the majority of the time in the rat subjects. They just got fatter. On top of that, we know that these things screw with your brain to the point where people don't realize that a poor diet, so many depressed people out there, and it's because we're broke. I know when I'm broke and eating crappy food like ramen noodles and dollar menu items and stuff like that, my body's not processing well. I start to get a pooch. I feel depressed. I mean, it's quick too. It's not even like a kind of thing. It happens fast. I mean, I eat a piece of bread. The next day when I get in the shower, my stomach explodes. It's weird. I've shown my wife. She can verify it. My stomach just starts to bulge out. And by the time I get out of the shower and cool down and all that, I'm fine again. They say it has to do with dehydration. But it only seems to happen after I eat bread. These metals and these artificial ingredients are dangerous. And 5 years ago, when I stopped taking meds, like I said, I started the journey by removing alcohol. Then I removed artificial sweeteners. But then I continued the journey. And I removed all this stuff too. If it says mechanically, if it says processed, if it says preservative and it's not all natural, don't put it in your body. I remember when I used to see the organic tag back in the day, I'd be like, oh, that's for snooty people. That's bougie vegetables. Yeah, those are the bougie vegetables. Well, guess what? If I don't get it out of the organic section or from a local farmer, I don't eat it. Because I don't know what's on it. I mean, even before it becomes foods and drugs and products, they're spraying chemicals all over our foods. Glyphosate. I mean, as a landscaper, they've been checking me for years because of the lawsuit. They keep checking me because I sprayed that stuff for years, unknowing of how bad it really was. I helped on farms. I was around glyphosate a lot. In fact, I have stuff out in the garage that's like the commercial version. And you want to talk about it touches on it dies. It dies. I was breathing that stuff in. And then to know that if I go to the grocery store and I buy fruits and vegetables, that I can wash them off as much as I want. Those chemicals are in it. They went into the ground. There's so much of it went into the roots and grew back up into the plant. It's not just on the surface. It consumes the foods we eat. So now, from the beginning of the process, all the way down to when we ingest things and process them, the people that are supposed to be taking care of us are the people that we tend to not be able to count on the most, because they're willing to take checks. They're willing to take checks. They may say that they care, but how much? Because what I know for certain is that we started off tonight with a video about the Chamber of Horrors. And you know what? Let's fill you in with another little piece. So below that that paragraph there, look, I got a link there to another YouTube video. Go ahead and pull that one up. That one, that's a little bit of a continuation. Because don't forget, these are the people in control. These are the people making the decisions whether it's healthy for you. Keep that in mind.
Today's episode, The American Chamber of Horrors. In the 1920s and 30s, hundreds of women purchased a cosmetic eyelash and eyebrow dye that advertisements promised would help them radiate personality. Sadly, the product, marketed as Lash Lure, contained a poison that caused ulceration of the corneas and degeneration of the eyeballs, which could lead to blindness and, in at least one case, death. Like many cosmetics at the time, Lash Lure was not tested for safety and did not disclose ingredients, so consumers had no way of knowing the danger it posed to their health. And the FDA could not remove unsafe products like Lash Lure from the market because the existing law, the Pure Food and Drugs Act, did not apply to cosmetics. Today's tale from the FDA History Vault recalls how, in the mid-1930s, the FDA helped educate the public about the shortcomings of the 1906 Act. This information would play an important role in enactment of new consumer protections contained in the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act.
For a public health agency like the FDA, the early part of the 20th century was a troubling time. Dozens of harmful products like Lash Lure remained on the market. The Great Depression created additional problems, causing many poor Americans to avoid expensive doctors and rely on worthless and dangerous medicines that skirted regulatory authority. Problems also existed in the food industry, where the use of deceptive packaging shortchanged consumers, and ingredients were deceptively substituted into products as basic as peanut butter and jelly.
A popular book of the day claimed that consumers were being used as guinea pigs in a giant experiment by food companies and makers of patent medicines. The authors blamed the FDA for failing to act, but didn't recognize the limits of the agency's authority under the law at the time. However, the agency did have the power to educate consumers and policymakers, and it used this power to shine a light on the dangerous products in the marketplace.
The FDA's new chief education officer, a former advertising copy editor named Ruth Lamb, and the chief inspector, George Larrick, organized a traveling exhibit of many of the fraudulent, deceptive, and dangerous products then on the market. More than 100 products were featured, including medical products, human and animal foods, and cosmetics. It appeared at events like the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago, at state fairs across the country, and on Capitol Hill.
The exhibition was so shocking it was dubbed the American Chamber of Horrors by a reporter who accompanied First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt to view the exhibit. The name stuck.
The effort to enact a new law was supported by Assistant Secretary of Agriculture Rex Tugwell and many congressional wives and women's organizations that mobilized their members. It even led Mrs. J.W. Musser, who'd been blinded through the use of Lashlow, to travel to Washington to meet with members of Congress.
In 1936, Lamb also published a popular book entitled American Chamber of Horrors. As one reviewer wrote, Miss Lamb has had a ringside seat in the American Chamber of Horrors. The book tells the truth without embellishment and is not only an indictment of present conditions, but it offers a definite basis for immediate legislative action. Indeed, as Lamb explained, all of these tragedies have happened not because government officials are incompetent or callous, but because they have no real power to prevent them.
The exhibit, which was viewed by millions, was an enormous success, helping promote greater awareness and understanding about the FDA's role in protecting the public and the need for greater consumer protection. To this end, it played an important role in moving Congress to enact a stronger food and drug law, the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. That law, along with many amendments over the years, remains the law of the land today. Many of the products from the historic Chamber of Horrors exhibit are part of the FDA's History Vault, and during this anniversary year of the 1938 law, are on display at the FDA, providing a compelling visual record of the FDA's continuing and expanding efforts to protect and promote American health. We hope you've enjoyed your visit to the vault.
Don't you feel safer just knowing that the FDA is there working diligently to keep you safe? All these government organizations working so hard, but yet cancer and everything on the rise. People dying every day of really weird things that nobody can explain. People trying to eat healthy diets and seem to not be able to lose weight. People are depressed. Spend their days doing everything they can to try and feel better about themselves, better about their health, their mental well-being. And the one thing that most people forget is to pay attention to what they intake. We're probably all guilty. I'm sure we all have the best intentions of trying to eat as healthy as we can and take the time to recognize what makes us healthy and what does not. The problem is that we're being fooled. The things that we're told are healthy are not. The things we're told help don't. A lot of the same things that they make to help us feel better, the medicines, make us feel worse. And people are surprised. They're surprised when this happens. I look at recent studies about antidepressants, and they say, well, what was it necessarily? It was the serotonin is the lack of serotonin is what causes depression. So they give you pills to help create a better flow of serotonin.
Well, the pills have serotonin in there, so I don't know. They increase your uptake of serotonin somehow. They
uptake they increase your uptake in serotonin. But now they're finding that that's not why people are depressed. They're like finding that was just theory. Like I'm sure it would be easy enough to find this information and pull it up
because
they're willing
to prescribed something like that to me, and they never taken any type of serotonin levels in my
Yeah,
brain
they
before.
had no idea
They
what your
just
serotonin
blindly
levels did.
prescribe depression medication and anxiety pills to people, not knowing what their actual brain levels are.
Yeah, she's not depressed. She's stressed because we have a very stressful life at current with my health. And
I listened to somebody the other day, and they were talking about how everything's situational.
Come listen a little bit. I mean, that's really it. It is. Everything is situational, and you can't.
Like, they were giving people antidepressants, and they were doing a study, and they were finding that people that were taking the antidepressants were still depressed, and the situations surrounding their depression were situational. It was things going on in their life that were making them depressed, not chemical imbalances in their brain.
Yes.
It was just the fact that they had stress in their life. Like me, I have a husband who has epilepsy, and I have anxiety from that. So of course I have anxiety. What person wouldn't have anxiety?
Yeah. and that's the problem. Is so many people they mask their symptoms with drugs, with alcohol, with food, with pills, with everything under the sun to try and compete with that depression, when realistically most of us can look at ourselves and say, I know what my problems are. We can easily take a self-evaluation and say, all right, well, I know that this is what I'm doing wrong. Am I choosing not to fix it? Because, I mean, realistically...
I mean, you're only one bad habit away from getting rid of all the metals in your body.
Yeah, right. I read a quote the other day, and I even posted it around on one of my pages. I think you had sent it to me originally, and it went something to the likes of, yeah, don't necessarily want to misquote, but essentially it was, it said, if you're serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse.
Yeah.
Many people full of many excuses. I can openly admit that I sometimes cover for my own problems, my own issues. But eventually I have to recognize what those issues are and how I can solve them. And one of my biggest issues regarding my epilepsy was my intake of trash, poisons, carcinogens.
Had to come back on the Four Locos.
Yeah. I went from drinking every day to not drinking at all, and stop having as many seizures. And then I kept having breakthrough seizures with the meds. So I cut out the meds. And then I looked at my diet, and I cut out the sugars, and I started eating ketogenic because I was 100 pounds overweight. About 112 pounds overweight from my normal body weight. And so I wanted to figure out how to lose weight. And my buddy, who was 460 pounds, was down to 240 pounds by doing the ketogenic diet. And so I gave it a shot. It was a lot of work. I did it for a few months, but I started to slip away and started to eat a few more carbs. But I realized I could eat 2 steaks.
Everybody thinks you're wearing pajama pants.
Everybody thinks I'm wearing pajama pants? No, not tonight.
Business on the top, on the bottom.
All business. No, I mean, I did. I took out all the...
I started eating keto, like,
yeah,
really
I just started,
strictly.
Yeah, I took out all the high complex carbohydrates.
I'd make you a pack of bacon. And
Yeah,
you take bacon with you to work.
Yeah, she'd make me a pack of bacon. I'd eat a pack of bacon for throughout the day. She'd make me an entire pack of bacon. I'm not saying I eat the serving size. I lost weight doing this. Keep this in mind. I lost a lot of weight doing this. I didn't eat usually all day until I would get home from work. I would eat beef jerky or bacon throughout the day and drink lots of water and coffee. Occasionally, I'd eat a piece of cheese or something. Like if I wanted a different flavor in my mouth that day, maybe I'd bring a couple sticks of some good cheese. And that was all I ever really needed.
I always made sure it was like nitrate free bacon.
Yep, it was all.
That has something to do with epilepsy as well. We read a long time ago.
Yep, that was something that had the nitrates and nitrites that come in things.
They're additives.
Yep, they're another additive. Just another thing that doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to exist. Like, sorry, maybe you can't get something at the grocery store this week because they couldn't preserve it long enough, so they have to do it in smaller batches for everything. But guess what? I buy a lot of my stuff in small batch, and it's the only thing I buy now. So I would have to assume that these companies have an option. But to make things in bulk, they have to do certain steps to cut costs. So they do things like use that product neonate. I read one study where it said 800, and I also read another one where it said 1,300 times sweeter than natural sugar. 1,300 times sweeter? Do you know why they do that? Because things under a certain amount, they don't have to list in your ingredients.
I went to buy tea.
Just hold on. They don't have to put certain. They don't want certain. They don't have to put what they put in as long as it doesn't go over 2%. So when they put stuff like the neonate, which is just like a very, very high potent artificial sweetener, they don't have to tell you because there's not enough of it in it, but yet still has all the same sweetness. So then they put one of the other ones in there to work along with it so that they can put that one in the ingredients list. So you think that that's what you're eating, but it's not. No, what was that? But
I said the tea I went and got tonight. I was looking for that specific tea that had the cinnamon and whatever else in it.
Ginger,
Yeah,
turmeric,
have the good earth
nutmeg.
ones, so I was
Yeah.
like looking, and I look at reading all the labels and it's saying the tea descriptions at the bottom. It says it has a couple of them said they had soy lecithin in them. I'm like, where is that? Why do you need soy lecithin in tea?
In
What is
tea?
it? What is the point of that?
I make tea out of sticks and leaves.
Yeah, you put tea in a cheesecloth and put it into water. I was like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
I was pretty disappointed. So look out for tea because apparently they're putting it in everything.
I mean, it really is. It's not a maybe it's in everything. It's in everything. This stuff is in everything. And it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And we have the options. I thought because we were broke that we weren't going to be able to eat better because we were in rough shape when we came down this way. We were in rough shape. We had to sell everything I owned from my business to get down here so that we could get to the hospitals. I sold everything. I sold everything I owned, and I had to restart my entire life down here, and I rebuilt my business from scratch. And in that amount of time, when we came down here and I got rid of the alcohol and I got rid of all this stuff and I got rid of the pills, I didn't have a seizure for 3 years. Then I started making a few different choices and adding some things back in. Lo and behold, started having seizures again. Got them back under control. Made it about another year and a half. Yeah, about another year and a half, 2 years. And about a year ago, things just really went weird. And 4 months ago, things went even weirder. But I also have a lot of stress. I have nerve issues. I have a fungal skin disease that no matter how many times we tell the doctors that I have this disease that overtakes your body and can kill people, can rot your brain, basically. I mean,
the doctor sat there and told us that the sporotrichosis was not causing your seizures, but then you treated your Sporo over the course of the past few months, and now it's
Now I
seems
seem to
like
not be having seizures.
your seizures haven't activity hasn't been as frequent. You've also stopped drinking weird stuff though as well. You were drinking a lot of slushies over the summer.
Whoops. Might have been one of those ones that I could have avoided. You know, like I said, I like to have a good ice cream here and there. I like to have a milkshake, but I can also take the time to make sure I'm buying vanilla ice cream that's made with
Or just
pure.
make your own vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, you can make your own ice cream. Cream, salt, ice, vanilla flavoring.
Get some grass-fed organic milk. Get some organic sugar and.
You have the potential to do this, to help yourself. I'm telling you, it worked for me.
Shop the perimeter of the store. Don't shop the center aisles. I'm serious. Somebody taught me that like years ago at a hospital.
Yeah. Watch what you're intaking.
Even some vegetable. I found vegetable packages that had like frozen vegetables that had artificial ingredients in them.
Oh yeah. There's weird ones like
the ones we got
why
from
the hell do you
Walmart?
need to put preservatives and things that are in the freezer?
Right.
What the hell is the point at that?
There was salt.
It's because they take a long time to get into those bags, and they leave them in boiled water vats for days, and then they finally get drained out, and then they put chemicals on them to kill all the bacteria, and then they put these preservatives on them and throw them into a bag, and then you bring them home and eat them and go, why do these vegetables taste so weird? Well,
yeah, those ones that we got from Walmart are really gross.
They're weird. They're weird. They're hard to eat.
Yeah.
You can put whatever salt,
like,
butter, whatever you want on it. They're still gross.
We were just buying vegetables, so I was like, okay, let's just get some frozen veggies so we have vegetables in the freezer in case you want to add a vegetable to a meal in a quick pinch.
Yeah.
And bad idea because they're like terrible.
They're gross. They don't taste right. They taste like all the nutrients have been boiled right out of them or something.
They came from Spain too. On top of that, I was like, why are we getting broccoli and cauliflower from Spain?
Yeah, there's people right on the other side of the river here who grow all that stuff. So I don't understand.
Weird.
I mean, there's an old guy around the corner who grows collard greens, and people come far and wide to try and scarf them up before he runs out because they're that good of a quality.
Yeah, you could go buy a huge head of collard greens for $5.
$5 a head.
They're huge.
All the collard greens you could eat.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of collard greens. You have to add a lot of bacon to them to make them edible.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of vegetables aren't all that tasty.
And honestly, those heavy greens are really bad for your kidneys.
Yeah, heavy greens, spinach
and
all, yeah. And then what nightshades?
Yeah,
I mean, things like
tomatoes,
eggplant, tomatoes, peppers. Yeah. They're terrible for your joints.
I don't even eat sweet peppers anymore. I've never even really liked them, but now that I know that they're bad for me, I don't eat them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly your body is affected, your mind is affected, your entire life is affected by your diet. You have to be aware of what you're putting in your body. Know what you're eating. Know what you're drinking. Know what you're washing your hair with. Know what's in your soap.
Make sure your weed's not laced with fentanyl.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's funny yet not funny to us, unfortunately. Because somebody I know got poisoned by their weed because it got laced with fentanyl. Weird. I didn't think there would be any reason to put.
Well, the chat's talking about bud right now, so I was just.
Oh yeah, that was very weird though. It was so weird. My friend who would never do anything like that was overdosed on fentanyl because it was laced in with the. It wasn't weed. It was laced in with their wax or something, or their dab or something, wasn't it?
I don't remember this story. Who was it? I can't. I guess you don't want to say.
I'm not gonna say, but yeah, it's like that's scary. That's scary. Like, why did that end up in there? Why would that end up in there? And why, if you were the dealer, why would you sell it to somebody and not tell them? Like, what good is that? I mean, what does that gather for you? What does that help?
Yeah,
It doesn't.
I don't understand the point of all that. People are sick, I guess.
Yeah. Problem is, with any of these medicines, and when used properly, they are the right thing. They are helpful. They are good, amazing things. That's a shame. Like,
Well, that's why
I remember
illegal.
my buddy Paul. I mean, that dude he died at 56, and you would have thought he was 100. And he was in such bad shape. I brought him up to Dartmouth Hitchcock 3 different times. He was dead a couple times along the way in the ambulance. Like Paul, yeah, that guy who lived next door to me, whose wife moved to Yugoslavia, and they would just pile him up with that morphine. They would just pile him up with that stuff. It was just morphine sulfite. It wasn't even pure morphine. It was morphine sulfite. And he was like, it would give me such bad stomach aches. He's like, I'd rather have the pain. I'd rather have the pain of his heart giving up. Nobody should have to live like that. The guy ate Meals on Wheels every day. He used every bit of his disability to stay alive. His wife did everything to care for him until he died. He was so unhealthy. My father, when he died at 59 years old, we tried everything. Dad, stop eating Dollar General food. Clover Valley is not a brand that you put in you. Sorry. You have to recognize. You have to recognize what you're putting in your body. Artificial sweeteners, metals, odd preservatives, synthetic chemical compounds, the inactive ingredients in medicines, all the antifreeze that comes in your shampoo. It's all bad. But you have a choice. And you have options. Take a diary. Keep an eye on what you eat. Look at the labels.
Look up every ingredient. Take the time to research every
single
ingredient.
Know what you're putting in your body. Because it has stopped my epilepsy more than anything.
I know there are some apps you can download that I've heard of that I haven't tried, but I kind of look into that. You can scan like a barcode, and it will like tell you whether or not something is like basically high grade or like edible or whatever. If it has a bunch of stuff in it that you're not supposed to.
Well, if we can find that for next week, I'll make sure that we bring that up and whatnot. But it's 8:00, and I am going to close her down for the evening. We've got Lucky Show coming on at 9:00, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I know last week you were in rough shape, so I just want to confirm this week.
Yes, we're Steve and I have a great show tonight.
Awesome. Well, good. I'm looking forward to it. So everybody head over at 9:00. Head on over to Lucky Burrito and take part in that. Come join us for some fun. I'm typically more conversational over there because it's exceptionally hard to look at the StreamYard screen, which is like 10 seconds ahead of the YouTube screen, and try and keep up with the chat. I understand why you have so much trouble. Like it's confusing for a broke brain like me.
Yeah,
so.
it well, when you're trying to also pay attention and read stuff and everything else, and then you have the chat too, it's like it goes by, it goes by fast, and it's like, you have to be able to like pay attention to both places or just one. So
yeah, and with my ADHD, reading and speaking at the same time don't work well. Hell, you saw me. I had this, Laura, don't cut me off. I'm gonna forget what I was saying.
Yeah, I know. I get the same way when I do streams with Steve too. Sometimes I'm like, like
hold on, I'm too dumb
your
to
whole
remember.
thought process can go out the window.
And I'm terrible about it.
He
So
says it's his broken brain, but I think it's his stoner brain.
I don't know what she's talking about.
I think it's probably a combo of a lot of different aspects of, just
Yeah.
being distracted and, being in front of a screen and trying to read something and also a chat going by. Yeah, it took me time to get used to being able to produce my own show, because I'm the one, when I'm doing my show, I'm the one in front of the computer doing everything. Like, there's nobody producing for me. Like, Steve's not doing the comments, I am. So that's why I get behind, is because it's
Yeah,
me
yeah,
doing
that's easy to
the
understand.
whole nine of everything, and
Yeah.
you can get behind, but it's nice to be able to help you produce, because you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, it makes things a lot easier when you can quickly pull things up, and I don't have to count on myself to mess things up.
Yeah, and well, you give me a good outline, so it, what I mean, it works well that way.
Yeah, I try, and look at that. I'm getting pretty good at nailing. I'm like, okay, I know how long this should take me, about this long, and so I'm nailing that halfway point like weeks in a row. I've nailed that halfway point. Like, this should be about halfway, and then I get to it. I'm like, wow, I really am right at halfway. Sweet, good. And this week we got to have Steve play, so that was awesome.
Yeah,
I always like that.
Cool.
Yeah, that was a good addition to this week's episode.
Applejack is so cute. He says, "I'll produce for you, Lucky. Also, I don't know how to produce."
That's how I feel too.
Yeah, that's why I went to you guys, because I was like, well, Laura, do you want to do it? She's like,
I don't want to take the reins.
like, I don't want to mess up. No, go find somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, it's been about a year of me, doing the show and getting used to it and everything like that. So it's much easier to produce for somebody else.
Yeah.
You just have to, you even as a producer, though, you have to really still pay attention and follow your cues and try to make sure that you're, paying attention to when you might be shifting into something else, and have, make sure you try to get it ready.
Yep.
And all that. So yeah, it's fun though. I'm enjoying it.
Well, good. I'm glad, because I appreciate it greatly, and I'm glad that this is. And we're at week 8, and the first week was me as a pilot of me explaining what was going on. Week 2 and 3 were kind of rough looking.
And what did I tell you in the beginning too? I was like, watch, you have to have a wonky beginning streams, and they're gonna be wonky in the beginning, and then you're gonna look back and go, oh my gosh, look at you can see your progress as you go. Like, if I went back and looked at my shows from just even one from months ago, I'm like, oh my gosh,
what was I doing?
Big difference. It's, you get more used to it.
I look at this camera that I bought a couple of weeks ago. Just look at the difference between the visual aspect of it, of how much cleaner this camera is and how much better it looks, and the way the sound I was about the sound quality of adding an actual condenser mic style instead. It's like, man, it's every week we're upgrading a little more, getting a little better at this, and hopefully we can just keep growing. And I mean, 2 weeks ago I was whining about viewership, but then last week we were at 100 views on last week's episode. So I'm real excited. I'm glad people are taking a look at least, and hopefully people are learning some stuff and getting some stuff from this, because I mean, all this information has really changed my life. It's not stuff that I'm presenting to you because I read it in a book. I'm presenting it because this is my life. This is what has changed my life. This is what has helped me grow and become healthier as an epileptic. And really is. You look at the picture of me 5 years ago before I quit drinking. Well, I quit drinking originally 8 years ago. But when we moved down here, I got a little depressed and took about a 1.5 year hiatus. So had about a year of Laura hating me again. So we stopped that again real quick. But it's probably been about 5-6 years now since I've had a drink. And it's funny. It doesn't even interest me. I'm not even kind of interested anymore. And just looking back and saying how many times I woke up and would be like, man, I am hungover. And then in hindsight, now looking at it and going, oh, you fucking moron, you were having seizures.
I get hungover from food too. If I eat crap food, I can feel it in my body, and I get that like hungover feeling, and I'm not a drinker like anymore. But yeah, I used to drink back in the day. I didn't really get a lot of hangovers or anything. That was part of the problem why I don't drink, is because I don't, like I can drink and I can easily drink and I can not get hungover. But I've had a couple where I've, really drank a lot. Where I would say most people would have ended up in the hospital, but like, I'm like, oh, hungover. Yeah. Like, I get it. And, but I get that kind of like, it's almost like you feel like it's like an aura from like your food too, like if you eat crap, you feel it. And
You
like,
feel crap.
when you eat when you eat healthy, even if people take it and just change their diet for, just like
Give it a month.
do a wager with us. Try it. Try eating, like slowly switch your diet over. Switch over, say, I'm not going to buy this if it's not organic anymore. And then you just slowly, that's what we did when we went to, eating mostly organic food and we went vegetarian. We did it little by little. Like it's not like you can just be like, oh yeah, I have the money to just wipe out everything I have in my cabinet and my fridge.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm
It
just
takes
starting
time.
over,
It's a process. It's a
That's
process.
true,
Plus,
too.
you have to find out which foods work for you again, because you've been eating the same things for years and years, and now you got to figure out what feels good to you again. And it's a process. It really is. I mean, for years we thought I was lactose intolerant.
Yep.
Turns out it was just like the bleach and everything that they use in the processed milks and stuff, and the economy milk. She only buys me the grass-fed organic. Sometimes if we're lucky, they'll have the cream on top. So it's like, I mean, they get it from local farms. So I mean, this stuff is, it's delicious. And I can drink the whole goddamn gallon of that thing and be fine. But it used to be I drink a little glass of chocolate milk, and that would be the end of my night.
We go to his mom's house, and his mom buys the economy Walmart milk, and he'd drink some of that, and sure enough, like he'd have a reaction to it within like a couple hours, be in the bathroom
Every time.
And you know what's crazy? That's what you get like when you have stuff like WHIC and everything like that. Like,
that's why we gave it up. We said, never mind, you can keep it. Like, we're not giving this the
you have to buy the
formula
cheapest stuff of everything. It's not like you get the healthiest thing that they have. You don't get to buy the organic. You don't get to buy, like
you have to get a doctor's thing and do a full request to get certain stuff. But they would give us formula that had such high arsenic levels, because rice has arsenic in it naturally. It's just something that naturally occurs in rice, and so that's why you're not supposed to ingest too much rice. But when they process that stuff, it holds that, and so you get it in larger amounts, and so that's scary. Like, geez.
Yeah, it is. It's really it's crazy, and they're pumping this stuff into the kids from the beginning.
That the one thing that I saw that really, really bummed me out was they're saying like women that were ingesting the aspartame while they were pregnant, and kids that were eating aspartame before they were the age of 6 years old, it was causing brain damage. These kids were having ADHD and sociological disorders like far more frequently, like excessively. And the women that were doing it, the kids were coming out brain damaged and with tumors and all kinds of stuff. And so they say, oh, we can't find anything wrong with it. Like, okay, sure you can't. Thanks.
Well, when Malachi was a baby, when I was on WHIC, they gave us Gerber formula, and Malachi would throw it up like, I mean, he couldn't
swallow it.
He couldn't keep it down. And they just kept telling me, oh, it's fine.
That's what they all do. They all do that.
That's just what happens. He's just a puker, they just kind of told me. And I was like, I was a new mom. So I was just like, okay, well, it must be and then so I tried different formulas. I tried Similac. I tried all the different ones. And he would have a reaction to all of them. And then with my second son, they came out with better products by then, and they have like all natural organic formula. And I breastfed for about 3 months, and he just would not get off my boobs. So I was like, I need to my back was killing me. I was like, I need to get a break from breastfeeding. And so I found that organic formula, and I was worried because of the reaction that Malachi had. I was worried that he was going to have a similar reaction to the formula. But sure enough, that organic, the Good Earth one,
Yeah.
He kept it down, and he drank so much of it. He loved it.
Oh God, he got so fat. He got so fat. He got huge.
Really big, because everybody was like, "Your baby is too small. Your baby is too small." I'm like, "He's a baby. He'll grow. Don't worry."
Yep.
And sure enough, he got so big. He was so chunky.
Yeah, he was enormous so fast after that. And it's always funny because we tell people, like, yeah, of course our baby was small. I was 3 pounds, 4 ounces. Like, I'm tiny. I'm a very small man. My 10-year-old is almost as tall as me at this point. It's starting to get nerve-wracking. Like, he's going to tower me soon. He's going to be big.
Yeah,
And,
I was lucky enough that I was able to breastfeed for 2.5 years with Skyla. I mean, obviously, like once they start at, about like 4 to 6 months, when they start to introduce food, they breastfeed less. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's all the time, but it is. It was a lot.
It's always a shame for the women that have issues that can't breastfeed, but unfortunately Laura couldn't produce as much as she needed for him to be satisfied.
Pumps. I would drink tons of water. I ate plenty of food. They did everything that they told me to. I just couldn't lactate enough to like keep him satisfied.
Yep.
And they weren't very big babies, so I was worried that they weren't gaining enough weight, and the doctors were worried. So I was like, I'm just going to do half formula, half breast milk for a little while. And then I eventually weaned him off the breast milk and just did bottles, because I on top of that, I have really bad scoliosis in my back. So like holding the baby and like hunching over all the time was making my scoliosis worse. So I'm like, I need to need to take a break from breastfeeding. But luckily that Good Earth formula worked really well. I totally recommend
any amount of breastfeeding is good for them, and it's good for you. It's good for your health too.
Yes.
It reduces your risk of breast cancers and stuff like that too. So it's good. It's good that you were able to do that, and it's good for them because they get the antibodies. That they get the antibodies.
I knew at least I wanted to do it for a few months, so that way I knew that the kids were getting all the stuff that they needed for me to make them healthy humans down the road. So
yeah, it's a good start. Any amount of it is better. You know what I mean? Any amount, the longer that you can do it, the better it is. And
they really say a lot of kids that don't get breastfed do have deficiencies in neurotransmitters and ability for their blood control barriers to process properly. So a lot of these kids that are not breastfed and are taking in these artificial things begin to not process nutrients properly. So then by their teenage years, they don't hit puberty properly. Like they don't have proper hormone levels. And so they hit, some of them will if they eat certain foods, it'll cause them to create hormones. It'll cause them to go into puberty far before they're supposed to. And then there's other kids that it pushes their hormones away. They get such changes. It blocks their hormones so much that they end up not hitting puberty till they're like 15, 16 years old. And a lot of it has to do with the diets and whether or not they were breastfed. As crazy as that sounds, like just that.
No, it's not. It doesn't sound crazy to me. It doesn't. It really doesn't, because they're like that. You naturally, your body does that naturally after you make a baby.
Yeah.
Your body naturally does that because that's your body's like way of saying, like, and it's not a shame to anybody who can't do it or weren't able to do it or didn't have the knowledge to do it, at the time. I don't feel like we have a lot of breastfeeding support.
And she could have used it. She was very, it made her very sad that she couldn't make enough breast milk at the time. And I remember I would, baby, it's all right. We're doing what we're supposed to. It's not that you're not trying. Don't get so upset about yourself. But it would depress her. It would make her very sad when she could not produce enough. And we did, like she said, we had the pumps, we had everything. We tried everything.
Yeah. It's a difficult thing, especially when you're brand new parent. If you don't have the support network around to know, like, how the, you know what I mean, and if you have a doctor that's like, pushing formula, or there's a lot of factors.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Latchy League. I actually went to a breastfeeding. I'll tell you something real quick before we end. It was really funny because when I was pregnant with Skyla, I went to a thing at our local hospital, and it was a breastfeeding support, and they taught you like about it, and like how to feed your baby, because it's not like it's just like a bottle and you just put your nipple there and the baby feeds. Like that's not. You have
Oh, you
to
have to
like
teach them how to latch on and stuff.
yeah, you have to teach them how to latch on, and the way that she explained it, it's like, okay, if you were putting like something like a Big Mac in your mouth, that's how much you need. It's not just like it will hurt otherwise. But I remember like saying to her like, oh well, I'm worried, Skyla's dad, he was like complaining about, like the baby waking him up. And the lady, I remember her name is Carol Pinnell, and she looked at me and she was like, he's a grown-ass man who can take care of himself. That is a baby that cannot. So he can do something else. He can sleep in another room, or he can, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need to be worried about a grown-ass man, because he made it about himself at that time. But that little bit that she told me, that little like, no, he's a grown man, like whatever, he can take care of himself. He didn't sleep in the same room with me and Skyla for 6 months.
Wow.
That was his choice. Yeah.
They told us that we weren't supposed to have the baby in the room with us, but that little sucker would scream and scream and scream if he wasn't. So for a while with our first one, he was in our room for a little while there.
That's
then eventually he
natural.
calmed down.
It's actually a natural thing for the parent to have to.
Yeah, he just wants to be
to
by his
have your
mom.
baby right there. What would you do if we didn't have houses
And cribs and
the mother would sleep right next to the fire with her baby. You know what I mean? Like that is, if you look back into natural instinct, and that's when babies don't end up with like something like SIDS, because the mother and the child's breathing sinks in together.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
It
yeah.
does.
That's very neat.
I co-slept with Skyla for like, the first few years of her life. And she is super independent, and like, she was my only child. Like there's all these misconceptions that happen, like, oh, you can't have your baby, you can't hold your baby all the time, you got to let them cry to themselves. Right. Hell no, I couldn't do that. She was with me all the time. She is independent. She is like her own person. She doesn't have issues with other kids or other people. They find that a single child actually is more independent and less, they're not like this spoiled, like everyone thinks that, like the stereotypes that they put on people.
No, that's not true at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with my first one, I held him a lot. My second one, I think I was more willing to put him down just because of my back issues and stuff. But yeah, I was always worried. I was like, oh, I held him too much when he was younger. But I think Malachi's pretty independent. He can go off on his own and do whatever he wants, and he's a good big brother.
Well, what's nice is, like I was saying earlier, you got to recognize your body. You got to know when your body feels a certain way. You got to know how you feel and when that changes. And the people that recognize that more than anybody, babies. There's something wrong. They'll let you know. You ain't getting away from it. If they're hungry, they got a poop in their diaper, they're gonna let you know. So I mean, it's.
I was talking about you as a baby. She's like, oh, why?
Oh no, Mom!
Talk about how I used to breastfeed you.
You told us you put your mouth on her boobie.
Don't expose that I used to drink from a boob, is what she says. Okay, you have to go say hi to Peaches, because Peaches is like losing his mind right now.
Hi, Peaches.
Do you want to say hi, Skyla? I'll put you on camera. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we're gonna wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say
Lay
we
down.
had a good
rest.
after conversation, laid into some good information and some good topic. Might not have been completely epilepsy related, but I think
Hey,
we had
women have
some
epilepsy too.
women with epilepsy. All, like I said, all of this all works in comorbidity with each other. So even though if we weren't talking directly about it, we really are. We're this overall health is more important to people than they recognize. Your mental health, your physical health, your well-being overall is guided mostly by your diet. So take a moment, look at what you're putting in your body, keep a diary, and know that you're making the right decisions. And keep this in mind. You're not alone. I'm right here, and I'll be here next week, and we'll have another great topic for you. We've got albums available at fearlesslyglitchy.com. Stephen Lucky Burrito's store has all kinds of neat stuff with everybody's face. I know Lucky was really unhappy to find out that there was a shower curtain with their face on it, so go buy that. And
No! Oh my
god! Yeah, I mean,
we bought some the other night.
yeah, we
I always tell
have to show
everybody
you our
too.
merch once it shows up, because we bought the pillow with me and Steve on it, the in black with us, and we're gonna give it away as a Christmas gift.
Oh, and I always tell people too that even though I don't have epilepsy, I always learn something new on this show because it applies to all of us.
It really does.
So-
I try to make it. I try to make sure that the information that I'm giving, it might affect me the most because I'm epileptic, but I want people to understand that these diets, these recognizing what you're putting in your body, these pills that have adverse side effects, the fact some people will die if in their sleep if they don't take care of themselves in a certain way. This is all very important stuff that we all need to know.
Well, don't forget, you're going to be doing you're planning on doing an episode of, like a special episode about diabetes.
Yeah, because week 11, because I'm gonna like I said, I'm gonna stick week 1 through 10. We're gonna hold as close to epilepsy as possible. But week 11, like I said, we're gonna try and jump on and get my friend on. She's got diabetic neuropathy, type 1 diabetes. She's got a glucose and insulin pump. My stepfather is also a diabetic who has Graves' disease and thyroidism. He had his thyroid removed, so now actually that's no longer a problem. He was taking Synthroid forever and stuff. So I mean, they both have had seizures due to their epilepsy as well, or to their diabetes as well. So even though nobody has ever called them epileptic, all it takes to be called an epileptic is to have 2 seizures. So they're epileptics too. Recognize your body, know your body, know who you are, and we hope to see you next week. Go over and take a look at Lucky Burrito and check out Drizzle Stank on Bandcamp and go purchase some of our music. A third of the proceeds go to the Epilepsy Foundation from all of our EDM albums, and we've sold 2 now, so we're already beginning our donations to supporting epilepsy and our own families. Yay! Just think of it. You probably buy a $7 coffee every day. At least with this, you know you're supporting epilepsy, Steve's family, my family, and you get some cool music out of it. You don't have to like every song, but I bet you're going to like some of them. You're going to like some of them. We put them at very fair prices. So take a look. Go take a look, and hopefully you enjoy what we got, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great night, and we'll see you soon, Lucky.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.